Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dual Axis podcast. I'm your host, Andy Kriebel, and today I've got an extraordinary guest for you. She's an Ironman finisher, a real estate entrepreneur, and a champion for women's financial independence. She's the brains behind Flippin Empire and has taken the real estate world by storm. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Stephanie Lombardo.
Hey, Andy, thanks so much for having me today.
Really impressive background. I know we've just met recently and we got started chatting, probably not even about the coaching program we're in together, but about triathlons. When was your first, you did a half Ironman, is that right? In 2017?
Yes. I grew up riding horses actually. And I suffered from some back injuries and my doctor told me to stop exercising and just take up like yoga. So I decided to take up triathlon. And started my first half in 2017.
Tell me a bit about your early life in Canada. So you grew up in Canada and now you live in Aiken, South Carolina, right?
Yes. Yeah, I grew up just outside of Toronto. I lived there, went to school there, grew up there. My whole family is Canadian, and everybody's still up there. But I just wanted to get out and do something different. So I was about 21. I was riding horses at the time and followed a lady I was working with down to Aiken and just fell in love with it. Like super culture shock. I mean, the South is very different than Toronto. But I loved it. And so I stayed down there and rode for many years in Aiken. So, and still here today.
So Aiken, there's a big Canadian population in Aiken.
Yeah. And I guess
so random.
It is very random. It is very random. But actually one of the girls, even in my real estate office, I met and we grew up in like the same town, which is just, again, totally random. But a lot of horse people come down, and it's just a good winter town. You can golf and play tennis and ride all year. So
how did your upbringing in Canada influence your career path then?
I mean, I come from a family of just hard workers. I mean, everybody in my family really is in construction of some sort. So that does play a bit of a factor in what I do as far as renovating properties, but nobody in real estate, but just a lot of hard workers. I mean, my dad still works today, works really hard. My brother, my uncles, everybody. But I did kind of take my own path. And like I said, nobody really had a career in real estate. I sort of fumbled my way into that. My dad talked about real estate a lot growing up, like buy rental properties. That's your way to wealth. But never did do anything with it himself. So, just by luck, I rode horses down here, had the back injury, moved back home to Canada and went back to school, studied accounting, which I would have been a terrible accountant, but certainly good for business and does help me. It serves me today for sure. But I came back when I moved back down to Aiken and started doing some bookkeeping, worked with a real estate mentor in that aspect, like with his books and business organization stuff. And that's how it evolved. So
when you were doing horse riding, that requires a lot of discipline, hard work. You have to be very structured with the training and all of that. How has that helped you in your business?
Well, even, with sports and just in general, I mean, you have to get the work done that day. Like you can't train for today, tomorrow. So that was a big thing. Even with the horses, they were on a pretty strict training program. And with Ironman, it's the same thing. Like you don't get to, add some miles that you need to get in today. So with business, it's like showing up, it's putting in the work, and it's sort of trusting that outcome is going to be there, when you show up on race day or game day. So,
so you talked about your multiple back injuries and how did that end up? So your doctor said no exercise and you decided triathlon, but there's got to be some sort of path between those two things, right? You didn't just instantly decide triathlons, right?
No, I mean, so I was doing horses. While I was still kind of in the horse world, I stopped riding and then I started to pack on the pounds a little bit. So I took up CrossFit, which was horrible for my back. I ended up rupturing a disc doing that. And, doctor said no more exercise. And then I was just looking for something else. I rehabbed myself. I went to chiropractic did chiropractic work like 3 times a week and, just sort of rehabbed myself that way. But my friend's dad, who is still an Ironman athlete, he actually just raced in Augusta this past weekend. He's 63.
Wow.
And no, he's 65 and placed 3rd in his age group, which is totally cool. And like fitter than me. I mean, it's amazing. So I would go and watch him race and I would see these people, all shapes and sizes and ages and, short, fat, tall. And I was like, man, like if these people can do it, like I can do it. And just sort of slowly picked it up. I trained for like 18 months, I think. Like I was starting from it was like couch to 70.3.
Right.
So, and just slowly went and really like has never bothered my back. So it's been a good sport for me.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I remember when I turned up on my first half Ironman, I've got this picture. I had this picture in my head of like these Greek gods that are going to be walking around and I'm going to feel like a fat Slav, even though I was in like the best shape of my life. And just that sense of relief. Okay. I think I'm more fit than that person. So I probably won't be last.
That's right. The worst part is that, they put your age on your calf, right? So, or they used to, I guess, I don't know that they body mark anymore after COVID, and so I'd be like running and this woman would pass me and I'd look at her calf and she's like 30 years older than me. I'm like, but
so demoralizing.
Yes. But yeah, it's an amazing sport and really cool community. My husband does Ironmans too. He just did the World Championships in France too.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And you did your first half Ironman was in 2017, but then you did a full Ironman in 2019. Yeah. I know what that journey is like to go through. What was it like for you?
It was good. And it's hard and it's been a while. Like, I feel like it was just yesterday, but it's been a few years. But, my husband woke up I think he woke me up from a nap one day and just said, we're signing up and doing it. I'd gone back and forth and I was like, maybe before I'm 40, maybe then whatever. And so we just signed up. I did get a coach. And it was sort of like I'd said, I just did the training of that day. Because if you start to think about that end goal, like even when you're in it or even in peak training weeks, and you're like, there's no way, like I just swam, 3,000 in the pool. Like, how am I ever going to do more? Or how am I going to get off my bike? I just did a 100-mile bike ride. How am I going to actually do a marathon after? And you just kind of had to trust the process. But Ironman, just Ironman is certainly part of my identity, and really like when I don't have a race or if I'm not signed up for something, I just don't quite feel like I'm performing in life the way I should, if that makes sense. So it was tough after the Ironman, we were trying to start a family and that. So, and then COVID hit and all of that. So I was on the bench for a couple of years.
Yeah. I haven't done anything since I finished mine was in April. And I ran 10 kilometers in the next 2 months total.
That's okay.
And didn't swim, didn't bike. And I felt terrible. Yeah. And it's really interesting that when you get used to that, the brutality of the training, I don't know how else to describe it, but it's incredibly difficult, getting up to have to do a 3.5 hour bike ride before you start work in the morning is really, really hard. But I think that's what drives me is the discipline that's required. That's kind of like the way my brain is wired. It sounds like it's the same for you. It gives you that focus to the day. It gives you that structure.
Yeah, for sure. And I really don't feel good unless I like training in the morning. And if I don't train in the morning, it sometimes is hard for me to fit in the afternoon, but I don't really feel I have more energy. And I think that was one thing. I was just building my real estate career too, as a real estate agent. When I started training for my full, and the energy I had in my business, really increased. I was fitter. I just in general had more energy. So I could put some longer hours in my work, and do that too. So, but yeah, even now, like I don't have a race on the calendar currently. But like I get up and run and every day and, it helps me so much in every area. My husband
Yeah.
either tells me I need to go take a nap or I need to go out for a run. And it's usually like go out for a run if I'm not in a good
Basically,
mood.
he's telling you you're grumpy.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's
100%.
his not so subtle way anymore of telling you that you're
Oh yeah.
grumpy. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
Same exact way. Yeah.
much more direct than that usually.
Yeah. So how did you get started in real estate then? And so you flip properties. And tell me a bit about how all that works.
Sure. So I got started just sort of on accident, working for a man who was a real estate investor, and worked for him. And he had a small company, and sort of I learned the ropes that way. I began flipping with this partner for a few years locally, and then kind of went off on my own. So, I buy distressed properties. We renovate them. Usually the worse the project, the more I'm intrigued by it. I haven't done very many paint and carpet renovations. So yeah, we buy distressed properties and then we sell them. And I never wanted to get my real estate license because I didn't want to like drive people around in my car and show them pretty houses. That wasn't really what I wanted to do. But I did get my real estate license to sort of benefit and keep more control for myself in my flipping process. So, and we use the same strategies that we flip to build our rental portfolio as well.
Explain to people what it actually means to flip a house. So you don't like literally pick a house up with your hands and flip it over.
That's right. So we buy distressed properties, and
what does distressed mean? Does that mean like foreclosure, or they've gotten kicked out of the house, or it's abandoned? Any of those things?
It could be any of those things. So it could be a house that's in really bad disrepair. It could have been vacant for a long time.
Right.
I have flipped properties. I've purchased and resold properties that have just needed some minor cosmetic updates, but typically there's a motivated seller somewhere in there. So either they don't have the means to do the renovations themselves. It's a family property that, they got stuck with or has been stuck in probate and they just want the cash, or they have tax issues. So usually there's a motivated seller. And yeah, the level of distress sort of ranges from a full gut renovation to paint and carpet and just putting some minor finishes.
What's the typical time frame then for flipping a house?
So the whole process, I like to be in and out I have a certain price point I like to be in. It's where I feel comfortable. And that's right around the median price point for my area. But I like to be in and out if I can within 4 months, or 6 months or less. So that's from purchase to sale. Sometimes they're a little bit faster if you don't have a lot of renovations to do, but that's a pretty good average, 4 to 6 months.
So you must have a set of contractors that you are, well, not only probably dependent on, but also highly trust. You've built up a lot of trust with them, or they've actually built up a lot of trust with you.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Contractors are the most challenging part of my job for sure. But I have some really good subs I've used for a long time. Sometimes we do have to hire new people and test out new people. Sometimes it works well, not. But we definitely, and I've got multiple projects right now where I've got some of the same crews on it, which can be helpful and sometimes difficult because you can't get them to, if he's focused over on one, he's not always focused on the other. So.
And you managed to scale your business to 24 units in 3 years. How the heck did you do that?
It's a lot of hard work and some focus. So we bought my husband and I actually it wasn't our wedding night, but it was the day after our wedding night. We sat down and there's this book I wanted him to read about, it's called the BRRRR strategy. It's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Okay. So I had my husband read this book and I was like, this is our retirement plan. We're both self-employed. This is how we're going to build some real wealth versus just earning some money. And the night after our wedding, my husband sat down and he had this spreadsheet. We wanted 30 doors in 10 years was our goal. Okay. And So we just started knocking away at it, and we've been able to buy, we'll hit the 30 within the next year for sure.
So that must require a lot of cash flow.
When we started, we decided to sell his primary residence. We both had our own houses. So we had a small, lump of cash that we were going to use. So we bought our first property. We bought it cash. We renovated it with cash. And then once we placed that renter in it, we refinanced and we got our cash back. And that's how it works. Okay. So you're taking the same amount of money and you're just recycling it over and over. And we've been able to utilize some private money lenders, which have allowed us to buy multiple at one time and do the same thing. I borrow $100K and put it in that project and then sell it or refinance it rather and pull it back out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And so the name of your company is Flippin Empire, is that right?
Yeah. So Flippin Empire is the training and education division, I guess, of my company and my empire.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I, over the last year, have noticed just a need for more women to be in real estate investing, specifically real estate agents. I find they have a desire to do it and just don't know how. It's a pretty male-dominated industry as well. So I think women in general just need to approach it differently. So I found a need for it. I have a ton of knowledge. I love talking about real estate. I can sit and talk about it all day long. So I just started to put together a program. I started in the spring. I went through a mentorship program with some women, and then since have just built out some courses and an accelerated program to help women move from the desire to get involved in real estate investing to actually doing it and starting down that path.
So how would you describe the mission then of Flippin Empire in your own words?
So the mission of Flippin Empire is really just to empower women along their path to financial freedom through real estate investing. I believe that real estate is a vehicle in any capacity. There's very many different ways you can use real estate to build wealth, not just earn money, but build real wealth. And I do believe that women need to have more money and have some more independent financial independence.
You mentioned that real estate is primarily men. How has that experience shaped your understanding of the issues that women face in real estate?
I think that women just get a little bit of a pat on the head more often than men do. We don't typically get the pat on the back. We get a little bit of a pat on the head.
Good girl, you did really well.
Oh yeah. Kind of and like if I'm in Home Depot, like I am not a general contractor, but I have a pretty good understanding of construction. And like if I'm in Home Depot, I get a lot of like, hey little lady, like can I help you pick this out? So I think that happens a lot. It happens a lot too in raising capital. And that's part of the journey. I mean, it's okay if you have to work a little bit harder. Just to sort of prove yourself. I think it makes it taste a little bit better when you are successful. But dealing with contractors, I think, is the hardest thing as a woman to sort of generalize, but they don't like being told what to do often, especially by a woman.
Particularly by a woman. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it can be a little bit challenging and you just kind of have to play the situation and play the person that you can. And, if you're too direct, and I can be pretty direct. I'm working on it. But if you're too direct, then you're a bitch and they don't want to work for you or do what you say. And if you're too nice, then they take advantage of you. So it can be tough.
That's like the classic thing you see in a performance review for a woman versus a man, right? Men are seen as assertive and women are seen as bitchy or something like that when they could say the same exact things. It's really disappointing. What do you think it would be like in your job if you didn't have that kind of, I know it's sort of discrimination, I guess. Well, if those barriers weren't there for you, what would it be like in your business for you?
There's still going to be challenges to it. And I don't know that I can really speak to that. I mean, I don't mind the extra challenge. I think I've learned how to navigate it. But I do wish what I wish is that there were more women in the trades. I think that women would be better. We'd have some better general contractors if they were women. I do have one female plumber, so I like using her a lot. But I think that would make a big impact to the industry. And I think over time, like, it just takes me a longer time to build those relationships with the men so that they sort of know and respect me, I suppose.
Do they treat your husband very differently then?
Yes. My husband just recently left his job and has come in full time into the family business.
Right.
And I gave him a job at the Lombardo real estate company, so he laughed at that. But anyway, he started to work with me, and I've sort of put the contractors on him a little bit. I'm much better at the deal acquisition and raising capital. So he's been dealing with that, and it's been easier. We also have a lot of Spanish speaking. We have a lot of Hispanic workers where we are. My husband's from Argentina, so the language.
Okay, so that helps as well then. Yeah.
Oh,
that's great. So you found him a niche within your company.
Yeah, I gave him a job. Yeah. So I bought back my time there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you have a relatively young child. How old?
We're in like those weird months where you don't know what to say. She'll be 2 in January. She's about 20 months, 21.
Right. Okay. That's a wonderful age. The terrible twos. I don't think they're terrible twos. I think they're very interesting twos, because that's when they really start developing their personality, and they're funny. They're really funny.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Some people get really upset about that for some reason. I guess they don't like the chaos of a 2-year-old. So how do you then balance your professional commitments, your child, your training? How do you manage all of that?
It's definitely harder than it was, but it's all about, listing out your priorities. So I like to focus on, I don't like to say work-life balance. Like I don't really practice balance very well in general. But I do try to have a little bit of harmony. So I like to get my training done in the morning before my daughter wakes up. My husband helps a lot, and he also has the same passions, and he's an athlete too, so he respects my time there. And I've just become a lot more efficient with my time. Even my assistant was telling me, like, my level of execution has increased dramatically because I want to get my work done and I want to go spend time with my daughter. A lot of what I do, of course, is driven by her, but I want to spend time with her. So I don't want to be working. Like if I can't work a certain amount of hours and the schedule that I want to keep, it's not going to work for me.
And I guess that's where your assistant comes in, right? Do they manage your entire calendar? And they tell you, Steph, this is when you're going to do your training. This is when you need to shut off for the day. This is, whatever it might be.
No, not really.
You don't want to give that up yet?
No, no, I mean, I try to keep it pretty, like, my work hours stay pretty much the same. I think when you have so many areas in your life, you need to have some consistency in your daily routine. And my daily routine doesn't really change much from a Monday to a Saturday.
Okay.
So she definitely helps. She manages a lot of my email and a bit with my calendar, but I go in there and mess her up anyway and I like throwing stuff in there when I feel like it.
What is it like to have an assistant that does your email for you? So I'm about to hire one, and I have this like euphoria that I think I'm hoping for.
It's been really good. I subscribe to a lot of stuff too, because more I feel like for like research, I like to see people's advertising and marketing coming through my email. But so she's like, oh, good God, like you have so much stuff coming through here. Yeah, but it's helped a lot. It's helped the organization. Like my email is my filing cabinet. So that has helped. We used Dan Martell's, in Buy Back Your Time, he has those email folders, and that's been really helpful. But what, you do spend a lot of time, like you're waiting for those notifications on your email. It runs your day, like gives you that to-do list. And I really don't think about my email like I used to. Like I don't touch my email. Typically somebody on my team knows to text me if there's something important in my email I need to sign or whatever. They'll send me a text message. So it's freed up a lot of my time for sure.
That's great to know, because you spend so much time looking at your email without realizing that you're just constantly checking it. I guess it's no different than social media, right? People are constantly picking up their phones.
Yeah.
What is it like? Is it like something like 200 times a day people pick up their phones? Something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is on the iPhone, it tells you how many times you pick up your phone. I don't know if you know that, but
I do. It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah. And every time I'm like, okay, I need to change that. And I do it again the next day. Same thing. Yeah.
That's right.
What's next on the horizon for you and for Flippin Empire? What goals can you share?
So with Flippin Empire, we've only just started to break ground this year. So we're super excited about finding those really driven women. Me being very driven myself, those are the types of people that I want to work with. So we're really focused on the accelerated program. That's going to be our core offer for the next several months. And that's really to take the women from point A to point B and get them some results. So that's everything we're focused on. Of course, with it being a newer program, we are improving every day and finding the best way to get results for women. So that accelerated program is open. There's always enrollment open. I don't want anybody to be cut off because of time. So we've established a really cool curriculum so that people can execute well.
Okay. And where can people find that?
So you can go to flippinempire.com. The best way to find me is going to be on my Instagram page. I post a lot of content on there, just about real estate, life, motherhood in general.
Right.
So find me on there, shoot me a DM. I'd be happy to talk to you on there.
Okay, great. Yeah. And I'll put all those links in the description for this as well. And why don't we finish with a couple of fun questions? So I know, because we're both in Dan Martell's group, we're required to read every day, which I've actually thoroughly enjoyed because I never read before. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can enjoy reading. What is one book that profoundly impacted your life?
The one book that really impacted my life would be Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And in it, I think he showed me the path to real wealth. He's got some other good books following behind, but that one showed the path, one, through real estate. It made it attainable for anybody. That guy could do it. And then it also showed the importance of mentorship through your journey.
Last question for you, Stephanie. If you could give your 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think it would just have more confidence in yourself and to really just listen to your gut and go after it.
Yeah. So thank you very much for joining me, Stephanie. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and I look forward to watching your progress. And everybody that wants to follow Stephanie, you can get all of the links in the description. Thank you.